The day Chidima gave birth to their first child should have been a celebration, but instead, it became the start of years of silent suffering. She had labored for long hours in a small private hospital. The moment she heard her baby cry, she smiled, exhausted but overjoyed. The nurse looked at her and gently said, "It's a girl." That smile slowly faded. Chidima didn't mind, not one bit. She believed children were blessings from God, regardless of their gender. She remembered holding her newborn daughter, her heart swelling with love, but behind her joy lurked dread. She knew Kofi, her husband, wouldn't be happy. He had been vocal about wanting a boy. When Kofi entered the hospital room with his mother, his eyes scanned the room, then narrowed as they landed on the tiny baby wrapped in a pink blanket. He didn't even approach. "It's a girl," Chidima said softly, almost as if confessing a crime. Kofi stood still, his lips pursed. His mother, Madame Abena, hissed and muttered something under her breath. Then she snapped, "You couldn't even give him a boy. After 9 months of carrying a child, this is what you brought into the world?" Chidima blinked back tears. "Mama, she's a child, a gift from God. A girl is no less—" "I didn't ask for a lecture," Madame Abena barked. "My son is the only man left in our lineage. If you don't give him a boy, his father's name dies with him. Do you understand what that means? We didn't bring you into this family to give us girls. Nonsense." Kofi didn't say a word. He didn't touch the baby. He just turned and left the room. From that moment, things changed in their home. Chidima named the baby Ada, meaning first daughter, and loved her deeply. But Kofi became distant. He provided money for the house, but rarely smiled at Ada. He never carried her, never fed her. Chidima was determined to make up for that, showering the baby with love and warmth. When Ada turned 1, Kofi's mother came to visit. "You must try again. This time make sure it's a boy," she ordered. Kofi nodded without emotion, as if his mother spoke gospel truth. That night, he came to Chidima and said plainly, "I hope you understand what is expected of you." Chidima swallowed hard. "I understand. But Kofi, boys and girls are not made by will. It's God's doing. What matters is that they're healthy and loved. I want a boy. My name must continue," he repeated coldly. A few months later, Chidima was pregnant again. But this time, her heart was heavy. She prayed every night, not because she feared having a girl, but because she feared what would happen if she did. She didn't want to be rejected again, to see her child unloved, ignored, treated like a burden. Her mother-in-law visited her often during the pregnancy, not to help or offer support, but to taunt and threaten. "I hope this is a boy," Madame Abena would say each time, her eyes scanning Chidima's belly as if she could see through skin. "Or else, you'll have no place in this house. We will find someone else to give my son a real heir." Chidima tried to be strong, but the constant stress began to weigh on her. She lost weight. She barely slept. Her spirit was breaking. When it was time to deliver, she was weak and worn, but she pushed through. She gave birth to another beautiful baby girl. She held the child against her chest in the hospital bed. The little one had big eyes and curly hair and clung tightly to her mother's finger. Chidima cried, not because she didn't love her daughter, but because she knew the hell that awaited them both. The nurse came in, smiling. "Congratulations! She's healthy and strong." Chidima managed a nod, wiping her tears quietly. Kofi arrived a few hours later, again with his mother. When the nurse said, "It's another girl," Madame Abena immediately let out a loud hiss. "You see what I said?" she shouted. "This one is cursed. 2 girls? My son, you must throw her out before she disgraces this family further." Kofi looked at Chidima, his face hard. "We had an agreement," he said coldly. "You knew what I expected." "And I told you. It's not something I control," Chidima whispered through sobs. "She's your child. She's not the child I asked for." That day, Kofi didn't speak to her again. He stopped eating her food. He began coming home late, sometimes not at all. Madame Abena moved in temporarily, insisting she needed to monitor this useless woman. She made Chidima's life unbearable. She called her names, insulted her food, refused to let her rest even after the difficult delivery. Still, Chidima clung to her daughters. Ada, now 3, was bright and cheerful. The newborn, whom she named Ziora, meaning blessing from God, was calm and radiant, but the walls of her marriage were crumbling. Then came the final blow. One evening, Kofi returned with a woman. "This is Afia," he said bluntly. "She will be staying here." Chidima stood, confused. "What do you mean?" "I'm marrying her. She will give me a son." Chidima's heart stopped. "What?" "I've wasted years waiting for you to give me what I need. This woman will do it." "But we are already married." "Our tradition allows it," his mother cut in, "and she already comes from a strong family. Her mother had 5 sons." Chidima felt the world crumble beneath her feet. She stared at Kofi, the man she once loved, and saw nothing but coldness. That night she sat alone in the room, her daughters asleep beside her. She prayed once again, not for a boy, not for a husband, but for strength. Strength to survive whatever came next. She didn't know it then, but a journey of great pain and unexpected grace was about to begin. Not long after Afia moved into the house, it became clear that she was pregnant. The news spread like wildfire through the compound. Kofi's mother, Madame Abina, danced with joy as if the heavens had finally smiled on her. "You see," she kept saying to anyone who would listen, "this is what a real woman brings to a family. A son, someone to carry the family name, someone to sit on the stool of our ancestors. Chidima, 2 girls and nothing more. Waste." She started treating Afia like royalty. Every morning she brought her breakfast to bed, rubbed her feet with shea butter, and made sure she never lifted a finger. "My daughter-in-law," Abena would say proudly to guests, "is carrying the future of this family." Chidima would watch all of it in silence, the pampering, the attention, the worship. She would sometimes sit quietly with her girls, Ada and Ziora, brushing their hair, feeding them, praying with them. No one in that house paid them any mind anymore. Kofi only spoke when necessary, and only to give orders. He never asked how his daughters were doing. He never played with them. He never bought them anything. If he came home with gifts, they were always for Afia or her unborn baby. When the scan revealed that Afia was indeed carrying a boy, the household erupted in celebration. Kofi smiled for the first time in years. He organized a small party, invited neighbors and friends. "My lineage is secure," he boasted. "This woman," Madame Abena said, placing her hand on Afia's shoulder, "has saved our family name." Chidima stood quietly in a corner, carrying her daughter Ziora in her arms, while little Ada clung to her leg. No one noticed them. When Afia gave birth to the boy, whom they named Samuel, it was as if a king had been born. The house was decorated with balloons and banners. Madame Abena ululated and sang for hours. Kofi took a whole week off work. Everyone brought gifts. Afia received expensive wrappers, perfumes, gold earrings. The baby had everything: new crib, expensive bottles, clothes from overseas. Chidima's girls had long outgrown their shoes, and she had to stitch Ada's school uniform by hand. But no one cared. The neglect turned into something more sinister. Abena began to make life unbearable for Chidima. "You walk around here with your long face," she hissed. "Are you jealous, eh? Can't you see a real woman now lives here?" Afia, too, grew bold. She would sit in the living room with her baby in her arms. While Chidima scrubbed floors, washed toilets, and cooked food, she was not even allowed to eat. Kofi no longer addressed her directly. He treated her like a stranger in his house. One day, as Chidima was about to serve food, Madame Abena stood in her path. "Why are you still here?" she said sharply. Chidima blinked. "This is my home." "Not anymore," Abena snapped. "Afia says she is uncomfortable with you here. She's a queen, and queens don't share palaces with servants. You must leave." "But where will I go?" Chidima whispered. "With 2 children? That's your problem. You should have thought of that before giving my son girls." Kofi said nothing, not a single word. He stood in the corner, arms folded, while his mother threw Chidima out like a bag of old clothes. She packed what little she had, A few wrappers, the girl's clothes, a blanket, and walked out of that house with tears in her eyes and her daughters by her side. They moved into a small, dim, one-room apartment at the edge of the town. The ceiling leaked when it rained, the walls had cracks, and there was barely space for a bed and a stove, but at least it was hers. She began selling vegetables in the market, tomatoes, onions, pepper. She carried her baby Ziora on her back and held Ada's hand as they walked to the stall every morning before dawn. They slept on a thin mattress on the floor, wrapped in one another's arms. Life was hard, but Chidima felt peace. At least no one was shouting at her anymore. Every day she saved a little money. She counted every coin, made every kobo stretch. She sent Ada to a small local school and taught her lessons at night with a borrowed exercise book. She never stopped praying. Then, one market afternoon, as she sat arranging peppers at her stall, a man approached. He looked different from her usual customers, tall, clean-shaven, with gentle eyes and a calm demeanor. "Good afternoon," he said with a warm smile. "Good afternoon," Chidima replied, adjusting her wrapper. "I want some tomatoes. And maybe onions, too." She began to pack some into a basket, and he watched her quietly. "Are these your daughters?" he asked softly, glancing at Ada, who was drawing shapes in the sand, and Ziora, who slept quietly on her mother's back. "Yes, both of them," she said, not with shame but with a tired pride. "You must be a good mother," he said. "I see it in the way you look at them." Chidima smiled shyly. "I try." The man returned the next day, then the next, and the next. Each time he stayed a little longer, asked a little more. He bought more than he needed, just to keep the conversation going. "My name is Desmond," he said one day. "I'm an engineer. I work with a construction company not far from here." Chidima hesitated, but replied, "I'm Chidima." Weeks passed, and Desmond never stopped coming. He never asked too many questions about her past. He was kind to Ada and always brought a sweet for Ziora. One day he brought them a bag of rice. "You don't have to do this," Chidima said quietly. "I know," Desmond said, "but I want to." Soon he told her what had been in his heart. "I want to marry you," he said one evening, sitting beside her stall as the market began to close. "Not because I pity you, but because I admire you. You are strong, gentle, and full of dignity." Tears filled Chidima's eyes. She had never heard words like that before. They got married quietly, no big ceremony, just a few friends, and the two girls wearing matching dresses. Desmond moved them into a proper home, clean, well-lit, with real beds and a small backyard. Ada and Ziora began attending a better school. Desmond treated them like his own children. He carried Ziora on his shoulders. He helped Ada with her homework. He kissed Chidima on the forehead every night. And for the first time in many years, Chidima laughed again. She had lost everything, but God gave her back more than she imagined. Years passed. In the big house that once made Chidima feel so small, Kofi was living what many thought was his dream life. His son, Samuel, was the center of his world. Kofi spared no expense on him. Expensive toys, the best schools, foreign tutors, designer clothes, anything Samuel wanted, Samuel got. He was just a child, but already had more than most men ever did. Kofi's pride in him knew no bounds. "This is my heir," he often said. "This boy will take over everything I've worked for." He had already begun changing property titles, lands, houses, even shares in his business, and was naming Samuel as beneficiary. Afia, now fully in charge of the house, walked with her shoulders high. Madame Abena, who used to command everyone, now served as Samuel's full-time grandmother and called Afia the savior of our name. And as for Chidima and her daughters, they were never mentioned. Until the day everything collapsed. Samuel fell sick. It started as a fever, then vomiting, then severe weakness. Afia panicked. Kofi rushed him to the hospital, frantic and afraid. They were admitted immediately. The doctor ran tests and said Samuel had a severe infection. He needed a blood transfusion immediately. Unfortunately, the hospital's blood bank didn't have Samuel's blood type in stock at the moment. "Don't worry," Kofi said confidently. "I'll donate. I'll do anything to save my son." The doctor nodded and began the process. But a few minutes later, the doctor returned with a strange look on his face. "Sir," he said carefully, "we just checked. You cannot donate to Samuel." Kofi frowned. "What do you mean? Maybe it's not a match, but I'm sure I can donate. He's my son." The doctor hesitated, then explained, "That's just it, sir. Based on Samuel's blood type and yours, it's medically impossible for you to be his biological father. There is no biological chance." Silence fell like a heavy curtain. "What nonsense are you saying?" Kofi barked. "He's my son." "I'm sorry, sir," the doctor said, "but according to genetic science, it's not possible. His blood type can only come from specific combinations, and you are not one of them." Kofi staggered. No, this can't be. He's my son," he muttered. But doubt had already crept in. Right there at the hospital, he ordered a DNA test. Urgent, immediate. He wanted the truth. The result came back quickly. Kofi was not Samuel's biological father. The paper shook in his hand as he read it. His knees gave way and he sank into a plastic chair outside the lab. His heart pounded like a drum. The boy he had raised, the one he had called heir, the one whose name was already on property documents, wasn't his. He remembered the naming ceremony, the gifts, the sacrifices, the papers signed in joy, the pride, the countless praises from Madame Abena, and it all turned to dust in his mouth. When Afia came rushing into the hospital room to check on them, she saw Kofi sitting silently, his eyes dark and empty. "What's wrong?" she asked innocently. Kofi stood up slowly and walked toward her. "Who is the father of that child?" Afia froze. "I said, who is the father of that child?" he roared. The hallway fell silent. Afia stuttered. "Kofi, why are you asking?" He slapped her words out of her mouth. "You destroyed my life. You lied to me." The nurse tried to intervene, but Kofi pushed past her and pointed toward the exit. "Leave this hospital. Leave my life. Don't ever come back to my house." "Ever," Afia tried to cry, to beg, but he wouldn't even look at her. The betrayal had shattered him. Madame Abena was called to the hospital. When she arrived and heard the news, she almost fainted. "No, this cannot be," she wailed. "This is Samuel, our prince, our heir." Kofi looked at his mother with a cold expression. "You made me chase away a good woman, a real woman. You turned your back on my daughters, all because of your obsession with a boy. Well, now look at your prince." "But Afia, she gave us nothing," Kofi shouted. "You gave her the keys to the house. You fed her like a queen. You humiliated Chidima for this." Abena covered her face with her wrapper and wept loudly in the hospital corridor. People watched with confusion, not knowing what had just happened. Kofi walked out of that hospital broken, betrayed, and in complete shock. He drove back home slowly, alone. The big gate opened for him, but the house felt like a graveyard. Every corner of it reminded him of the lie he had lived. The toys, the photos, the paperwork with Samuel's name. He went into his study and pulled the files. Everything he had changed in favor of a child who was not his. He sat down in silence, resting his face in his hands. Everything had crumbled. The boy wasn't his. The woman he trusted deceived him. The mother who raised him had guided him down a path of ruin, and the woman he had thrown away, the one he abandoned with 2 girls, was now gone, living her life far away from his pain. He had everything once. Now he had nothing. Kofi tried to move on after the truth about Samuel shattered his world, but the silence in his big house echoed like thunder. He had once walked with pride and power, but now he was just a man full of regrets. He thought often of Chidima and the daughters he had abandoned. Weeks passed, then months, but the emptiness in his heart only grew. One day, he could no longer bear it. He needed to see them. He needed to face her, to say the words he should have said long ago. Through mutual friends and quiet inquiries, Kofi was able to find her. One of his old colleagues mentioned that she had started a new life, that she was married now. Still, Kofi didn't care about what people would say. He just wanted a chance to apologize and to see his daughters. When he finally reached her home, he stood at the gate for several moments, unsure of what to say. The house was warm and welcoming, not flashy, but peaceful. He knocked gently. The door opened, and there she was. Chidima stood tall, her eyes steady. By her side were Ada and Ziora, both older now, graceful and happy. A small boy stood between them, holding Chidima's hand. Kofi stared at the boy in silence. His heart skipped. She had a son. He didn't speak at first. He removed his cap and lowered his gaze. "Chidima, I know I don't deserve anything, but I came here to ask for forgiveness," he began. "I made terrible mistakes. I didn't see your worth. I didn't value our daughters. I let pride and pressure destroy what we had. And now, I live with that." She said nothing, simply listening. "I know I don't have the right, but I want to be in their lives again. I want Ada and Ziora to know that I love them, even though I never showed it. I want to make it right. I'm even willing to take you all back if there's any chance for us to return to what we were." Chidima looked at him calmly, then replied, "It's too late, Kofi." He froze. "I am with someone now. My husband. He took my daughters in as his own. He's raised them with love, with patience, and together we have a son. We are a family." Kofi's chest tightened. Her words pierced deep. She had given birth to a boy, the very thing he had chased so desperately at the cost of everything else. He looked at Ada and Ziora again. They were healthy, beautiful, full of light. And yet, he had ignored them for years. He dropped his head in shame. "I was so impatient," he whispered. "I thought I knew everything, but I knew nothing." He looked back up, tears in his eyes. "Please, just let me have a relationship with them. I won't interfere with your life. I'll put everything I own in their name if I must." "I'm not interested in your riches," Chidima said firmly, but with kindness. "That's not what they need. I don't want them caught up in all of that. I've seen what that kind of wealth did to your judgment. My children are happy. They have peace. They are loved." Kofi nodded slowly. "I understand. I deserve nothing. But if there's any way to just be in their lives—" Chidima softened. "I won't cut you off. They are your biological daughters, but I can't rush this. I need to speak to my husband. He's been there for them every step of the way. We have built something stable, and I won't let anything disrupt that. But we will go slowly, one step at a time." "Thank you," Kofi said quietly, deeply grateful even for that small hope. "Please just tell them I love them, even if I was too blind to show it before." "I will," she said, "when the time is right." Not long after that, Madame Abena also tried to reach Chidima. The guilt had eaten her alive. Her son no longer spoke to her. The house that once overflowed with laughter now sat in silence. One day, she met Chidima in a supermarket and dropped to her knees, right there in the open. "I was wrong," she sobbed. "I was foolish. I mocked you. I rejected my own granddaughters. I treated you like you were nothing. And now I have nothing." People paused to watch, shocked. Chidima helped her up. "You hurt me deeply, Mama. But I've forgiven you. Not for you, but for my own peace. Please come back. You and the girls. I've changed." "No, Mama," Chidima said gently. "We are fine. I am fine. My daughters are at peace. They are accepted, loved, and safe. I can't go back to that life. It's in the past." Madame Abena wept again. "I just want a chance to know them, to beg them too." "We'll see," Chidima replied softly. "But that's not a door I can open alone. We're a new family now. I won't break what we've built." Over time, with careful thought and many conversations, Chidima and Desmond decided to allow Kofi's slow, supervised contact with Ada and Ziora. No drama, no pressure, just cautious steps forward. Kofi, humbled and quiet, was grateful. Desmond remained the rock of the family, a loving father, a respectful husband, a true man. And as for Kofi, he now lived alone, No Afia, no Samuel. His relationship with his mother remained strained, but he finally understood what Chidima had always known. Children are children. They are all gifts, and love, not gender, is what makes a family last. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, comment, and share. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a new video. See you in the next one. Bye.